British Columbia Conservative Party leader John Rustad deserves a lot of credit for having successfully maneuvered himself and his party through an NDP media hit job this last week. If you live in BC, you're probably very well aware of the supposed merger talks that were happening last week between the BC Conservatives and Kevin Falcon's useless BC United Party. The media was really pushing the narrative that the BC Conservatives and the United are in talks and they definitely need to talk and get together, or they're not going to be able to beat David Eby and his BC NDP. It's utterly false. The BC Conservatives have all the momentum right now. The only way that the BC Conservatives could lose their momentum and not win the election in the fall is if they were stupid enough to engage in merger talks with the United and even fully merged. The United is a boat anchor on the BC Conservatives' popularity if they merged into the Conservatives or if they started a new party together, which would be the worst of all options. Kevin Falcon is not charismatic at all. People don't trust him. People don't trust his party. So if John Rustad had allowed them into the BC Conservative Party or started a new entity with Kevin Falcon, all it would have done is take all the great work that the BC Conservatives did and then water it down with the crap sandwich that is the BC United. It's really hard for John Rustad to get on a debate stage potentially with David Eby and say that I represent a 180-degree change from the BC NDP when you have Kevin Falcon in your party and the BC Liberals, which are now the BC United, were the ones who started a lot of the problems that David Eby is now making worse. So it would have looked very hypocritical. So this is why it was good that David Eby last week said that I'm not merging, we're not having serious talks, and Brad West can join our party if he wants. But if he doesn't want to actually just become an MLA and run like everyone else is, he can pack sand. It's not the job of the party to bend over backwards for the mayor of Port Coquitlam because he's supposedly kind of popular, and that they should basically make their entire party around Brad West's personality. Brad West didn't put in the work, and it was never going to happen that the party was just going to sort of give themselves over to him as well as Kevin Falcon. Now, why I'm saying that this was an NDP media hit job was because when you look at the media coverage of this, it was so artificial. No merger talks were seriously happening, but all of these legacy media journalists were out there talking about how there's a potential that these two parties could get together, and they definitely do need to get together, or the BC NDP are going to win. Now, I want to pull up this clip right here and just play a little bit from it, because they were even bringing in hacky politicians like Christy Clark to imply that, well, John Rustad just can't win unless he brings Kevin Falcon into the fold. Check this out.
So the party was the Social Credit Party, then it was the BC Liberal Party, and now it's the BC United Party. The Conservative leader and the...
You can even see right there the contempt that Christy Clark has in her voice for John Rustad. Make no mistake, all of these people are united in trying to hurt John Rustad.
BC United leader were both in my cabinet at the same time. And, you know, what they need to remember is that we lost, like Gordon Campbell didn't become premier in 1996 when everybody thought he would. And he had higher polling numbers than the Conservatives do now because there was a split in the vote. It's also why, although we won the election in 2017, we didn't get to form government because there was 200 votes lost to the Conservatives in one riding. So they absolutely have to come together. We have the slowest economy in the country.
This is the rhetoric that you're hearing from every talking head talking about this. And even when John Rustad was on an interview on CTV News, they kept saying, well, why aren't you merging? Don't you have to merge? Well, don't you owe it to your voters to make sure that you come together to beat the NDP? That is not how things would actually work. Christy Clark is just wrong about 1996. The reason Gordon Campbell couldn't win in 1996 was because he wasn't enough of a departure from the NDP at the time. When he actually became more conservative, because the Liberal Party in BC used to be more of a big tent conservative party, that's when he was able to win a smashing victory in the early 2000s. Now, what they're telling John Rustad to do is water down your party, become more like the NDP, because that's what's going to make you win. When, if anything, he should become more conservative because that's what BC residents want. Look at the issue-by-issue polling. The Conservatives have the opinion that 76% of BC residents agree with, because 76% of BC residents on several massive issues in this election think the NDP are doing a terrible job. None of those people want United's just watered down version of what the NDP and the Conservatives are doing. They want the change, the full fat version of the reforms that the Conservatives are offering. So to bring in the United is not stopping vote splitting, it's just merely watering down the brand. Again, United is hurting the BC NDP more than they're hurting the BC Conservatives. You actually want the United to stick around for Election Day because all federal Conservatives that the United Party currently has are all slowly moving over to the BC Conservatives. In 5 months, when the election is around the corner, the BC Conservatives are going to have all of the federal Conservative voters voting for them. You couldn't possibly be a federal Conservative and vote NDP or United. Those two parties disagree with what Pierre Poilievre wants to do on a federal level. And so your only logical option is to go vote for the British Columbia Conservatives. And remember, the federal Conservatives have anywhere from 44 to 52% of the vote in British Columbia, depending on the poll you look at. So there's more than enough people to vote for the BC Conservatives to win this election. And then the rest of the left's vote is going to be cut up between the BC Greens, BC United, and the BC NDP. Even a lot of NDP voters are willing to come over for the BC Conservatives because even if they might like Jagmeet Singh's federal NDP for whatever reason, they can at least identify a lot of the programs of the provincial NDP are toxic in more ways than one, especially on drugs. And so why again, and I think I have another piece of evidence right here that I find quite compelling, that this was all an NDP hit job, because right after, the day after, because look at this tweet, it's on May 15th. This is when John Rustad said, there's no talks. We are not having serious talks with anybody. The BC Conservatives are going to keep on the path that they're on, and we're going to win this next provincial election. The day after, David Eby came out to condemn the potential merger between the United and the Conservatives and said this is evidence that the Conservatives are taken over by corrupt consultants, even though the NDP and the United parties are the two corrupt consultant parties, and the BC Conservatives are full of people who the media attacks as, street-level conservative activists. So are they street-level conservative activists or are they consultants? They're just saying things. But check out this quote from what publication is this? I think it's a Vancouver Sun article. David Eby said this: powerful interests are trying to arrange a marriage of convenience between downtown lobbyists working for the wealthiest British Columbians to protect their interests. Well, I've got a message for these lobbyists and for John Rustad and Kevin Falcon. The next election will be decided at the kitchen table, not at the boardroom table. It's clownish. This was said a day after John Rustad said, we're not in serious talks with the BC United. They can pack sand. We don't want their consultants in our party. And you could tell this was a coordinated hit because I guarantee David Eby had supplied these quotes well before this talk or this merger was going to happen, or like this potential merger talks were going to come out. And so a day after, 24 hours after John Rustad already said this isn't happening, David Eby is quoted in an article saying, I can't believe they're trying to merge. They're not trying to merge. You were just trying to create a fake narrative in order to smear the Conservatives with United's brand. That's how you know all these people in the media are being utterly dishonest about the fact that the Conservatives and the United need to combine if they want to beat the NDP, because the NDP is saying that they're basically indicating they hope they merge so that they can attack the Conservatives as being full of all the old BC Liberal consultants. It didn't happen, and now David Eby looks like a complete putz because his party is actually effectively endorsing the idea that the Conservatives are actually a pure party full of actual good ideas and people who want to push for reforms, because they denied the consultants. The media is trying to bait, and they do this on the federal level and the provincial level all across the country. They bait you into watering yourself down, tick off your conservative base who are now not going to show up for you in as large of a number, and in the idea that because you've now taken the more moderate position or merged with the more moderate party, this is going to help you, when really all it does is makes all of the people in that party who don't like the Conservatives just go over and vote for the left. This is what happened with Aaron O'Toole on the federal level. The media, and to a certain extent, they didn't have to really bait him, but they kind of baited Aaron O'Toole into adopting his own carbon tax, into saying he's not going to get rid of the gun bans, into saying he wasn't going to cut any government spending. And they got him to turn himself into a complete non-entity that election. He still won the popular vote, but that's just on the back of the fact that nobody likes Justin Trudeau. But Aaron O'Toole crashed and burned with his own base, who decided that in the Eastern Canadian provinces where most people don't really ever show up to vote Conservative because they don't have a chance, they definitely stayed home, because Aaron O'Toole made it so that even if you get out and vote and you put a Conservative government in, we're not going to do anything for you. So what's the point if I know that my riding doesn't even have that great of a chance of going Conservative? It's always on these marginal ridings that watering your platform down is going to hurt you, because in rural areas, people are already used to voting for the Conservatives. They're going to show up and vote for you even if you water yourself down. It's actually watering yourself down hurts you in the more moderate ridings, because your hardcore supporters out there get ticked off that all of their work, all their volunteering, all their donating and going out and voting might not really make that much of a difference, because we might not even elect a Conservative, and even if we do, he might not do anything. The BC Conservatives are indicating that no, we are actually going to pursue the heavy reforms that we need to make, and we're not going to suspend any of it just for the sake of Kevin Falcon needing to find himself a new job and trying to weasel his way into the Conservative Party now. Anyways, that should be it for me today, guys. Watch out for any media ops. They're all over the place. They always want the left to win. If you live in British Columbia, I have a link in the description below for the BC Conservatives donation page. They don't pay me to promote them. I just want you to donate to these people, because if you don't donate to your local Conservative Party, nobody else is. The mentality is always, well, a rich donor is going to come in and donate enough so that the BC Conservatives can win. You can't actually donate that much in Canadian politics. So each person has to be giving $100 or so if they actually want the Conservatives to beat the NDP. It's a worth it investment to make sure that you're not going to pay more taxes in the long run, to get rid of drugs from the streets, to get rid of crime, to get rid of SOGI. $100 to do that is a bargain. So consider doing that, because you get 75% of it back in a tax credit anyways. And if you don't live in British Columbia, you can donate to my legal fund, as I'm fighting a billionaire developer for defamation that he can't prove and hasn't given any evidence to prove in over 2.5 years of this case being active. Give, send, go link in the description below. And if you want to join the TNT Telegram channel and get all of our videos in order as we post them, there's also a link to that in the description below. Have a good one, everyone.